So to start, this is just basic wig knowledge. If you know this, bear with me. If you don't, you're going to learn something today. So wigs are definitely not all made equal. There are a lot of different types of wigs and different brands of wigs, and what they look like on the inside versus the outside is going to vary wildly from different wigs to different wigs. So there are things called hard front wigs, which is what I am wearing right now, which is going to be like 90% of the wigs that you're going to see are hard fronts, they're called, as opposed to lace front wigs, which have, you guessed it, lace in the front. So lace fronts are used to make a much more natural looking hairline, or super crazy hairlines like the Widow's Peak, so like Raven from Teen Titans, or Reinhardt from Overwatch also has a Widow's Peak. So essentially any kind of slicked back style, or a style where you can see somebody's hairline is generally what lace fronts are used for, although not always. There are also specialty wigs, which are things like ponytail wigs, wigs that are wefted in reverse. So normally your wigs, go down because gravity. Sometimes you sew the wefts in backwards so that the hair will point upwards. So those are useful for like your Super Saiyan wigs or anybody who has crazy hair that sticks straight up. That's what a reverse wefted wig is going to be for. And there are a variety of other like specialty wigs that you can find out there as well. Fiber types are also definitely not all created equal. You might have heard us yelling a little bit before the meeting about there are actually human hair wigs. They're typically very expensive, and they're made from actual people's hair. There's most wigs that you're going to be using for cosplay are a synthetic plastic fiber. There's actually more than one type of synthetic fiber that's used in wigs. And I can't remember their names exactly, and I'm sure I butcher them anyway because they're in Japanese, so I'm not even going to try. But yeah, so fiber types is also something you need to be aware of because you have to worry about things like heat resistance or how well something is going to stick to itself versus not sticking to itself. And then heat resistance, like I said, some wigs are heat resistant, which means you can put a blow dryer to it, or you can put an iron or a straightener to it with pretty much zero consequences. There are wigs that are then not heat resistant, where if you put an iron to it, you're going to have a melted glob of plastic on your hands, or it's just going to fry. There are various different consequences of applying heat to a wig that's not heat resistant, so that's something that you want to be aware of depending on what you're going to be styling. And then finally there are wig caps. When I say wig cap, I mean what the inside of the wig looks like. So for example, like up over here, you can see there are these nice rows of neat lace, and then there's lace up on the top there. So those are typically your more nicer quality wigs. And then there's the mesh cap, or just like the netting cap down here. Generally your less nicer quality wigs, but not always. So just things to keep in mind. So quality matters a lot when it comes to wigs. Things that you will find with like a cheap wig, I always use the like Party City or like Halloween store wigs as an example because they're abundant this time of year especially. But you could walk into a Party City any time of year and find like, rock star wig, and it's like this, horrendous 8 shades of color. It like looks like it's more plastic than what this is made out of. So cheap wigs are usually extremely, extremely shiny. They're usually really thin. So if you put it on your head, maybe you will see your actual hair underneath it, or you can see the lines where the wefts are sewn into the cap. They have that mesh cap as shown on the previous slide, although not always. They're usually not heat resistant. If you tried to put a straightener to a Party City wig, you have a melted glob of plastic on your hands. And they're often really, really like slippery or soft, which is maybe nice if you just like having something to wear and it not be super tangled and it's kind of soft and bouncy. But you can't style it then. The more slippery things are, the more difficult they are to style. I also love too this Hot Topic Goku wig. This is great. This is quality. So then on the other hand, quality wigs are usually really, really thick. They have a lot of fibers. They have the lace type cap, although again, not always. although generally you will find that nicer quality wigs have the nicer inside. Instead of just one solid color of fiber, they typically have a blend of colors in the fiber. The wig I'm wearing right now, if you want to look more closely at it when I'm done with this part of the workshop, you can see that there's actually like 3 or 4 different color blends in it, and it's also like redonkulously thick, so there's a lot of hair in this wig. The cap size is adjustable as well, so there's these little hooks on the inside that you can move depending on your head size and how much hair you have. So if you are bald, for example, you can pull the wig really tight, or if you are like me and you have a lot of really thick hair and you have to pile it all on top of your head, you can leave your wig a little bit bigger so that it's not compressing your head like a vice grip. And then most quality wigs are also typically heat resistant. So as mentioned, cheap wigs are from things like, Party City or Halloween stores. Also, most of the wigs that you're going to find on like Amazon or eBay or AliExpress or most Chinese or overseas sellers, not always quality. That like $7 wig you found on eBay, not going to be the best quality. This isn't always the case. It's hit or miss. I've found some really nice wigs on Amazon before, but generally this is what you want to watch out for. And then quality wigs are things like Arda, Wig is Fashion, Epic Cosplay Wigs, Rockstar Wigs, etc., etc. There are a lot of quality wig companies that I don't know about. So these are just the ones that I'm familiar with. Do your research if you're looking for something really nice that's going to last you. So this is the duh part when you look at this and you go, well, yeah, no, fuck, wigs aren't real hair, hello. However, that's when it comes to styling wigs, this is really the biggest thing to keep in mind, is that wigs are not real hair, so you can do things with a wig that you can't do with your real hair. For example, you can use whatever material that you want or that is going to work for your project. So things like glue or caulk, you can put foam into a wig, you can put yarn, you can put wire, you can put basically anything into a wig. This is Mallory, she's one of our members. She goes to Green Bay, she's the president of the Green Bay chapter of the Costume Play Design Guild. She has these drill curls for Mommy from Madoka Magica. Because I know Mallory and because she talked about her wig construction with me, she told me that there is packing tape in the middle of the drill curls, and then there's 2 types of glue and actual silicone window caulking in the drill curls to keep it in shape. So they look really good, so you can put things like caulk or glue into a wig and nobody can stop you. As mentioned, heat matters. Heat is going to be your #1 styling tool, as weird as that sounds. You can do phenomenal things with just a blow dryer. It's amazing. And you can make wigs get really, really, really hot if they are heat resistant, and do some interesting things with it, and then when it cools, it behaves in a way differently than your normal hair would because it is plastic fiber at its core. It's not actual hair. Washing and care is going to be a little bit different as well. Obviously, your hair gets greasy, you take a shower. If your wig gets a little gross, I don't know that you'd want to take a shower with your wig on. There are different ways that you're going to have to treat it and be careful. And then tools as well. You can use any kind of tool as well on a wig. Goes hand in hand with the materials. Nobody's going to stop you from using, any kind of pair of scissors that you want or whatever weird tool that you can think of. Get crafty, get crazy. So, basic care, you can wash wigs, and wigs should be washed periodically, especially if you're getting super sweaty while wearing them. That will get into the lace cap and make it all gross, and then you get this thing called wig itch, which is you put your wig on and then you get itchy because it's sweaty and gross and there's shit in the wig. So yeah, you can wash your wigs. Usually you can just kind of soak them in some warm water. You can use regular hair shampoo. They do make special wig shampoo. I've never seen the need to invest extra money in a special product. Yes.
I've also heard using baby shampoo, Johnson & Johnson,
yeah,
no tears.
Baby shampoo works as well.
I have had considerable success with just dish soap.
Yeah, you can, dish soap, yeah. So, this again goes with the sky's the limit in terms of materials. So yeah, a little squirt of dish soap or regular hair shampoo is totally a-okay. Swish that thing around, let it soak for a little bit, and then you're going to want to rinse it out, make sure all the suds in the soap and everything is free, and then hang it to dry. That's really the most important part, is that you let it hang dry and you don't try and do anything to it while it's still wet, because if you try and brush out or you try and do anything with a wig that's still wet, you're going to stretch the plastic fibers and they're going to behave differently when you're done. So that's typically something you want to avoid. So then brushing, you want to use a wide tooth comb, and like this, or even like this. This one's a little more fine tooth, but they both work. Typically this is your best bet, and you want to start from the bottom and go up. Because if you have a knotted wig and you start at the top, you're just going to push all of the knots down to the bottom of the wig. So start at the bottom, work in small sections at a time. You don't want to use your regular hairbrush or regular hair tools because human heads produce oil and sweat and other great fluids. That's such an awkward phrase. Your hair produces oil and sweat, etc., that gets onto your regular hairbrush or your regular comb. And then when you put that into a wig, you're just going to make the wig gross. So don't cross-contaminate. Gentleness is key as well. This goes with, like, if you just start yanking at something, you're going to rip hair out, you're going to stretch the fiber, it doesn't grow back unlike your actual head, which I'm sure we all know, but when you're going to town on a knot, sometimes you don't always think about the fact that you're going to have a bald spot, who knows? So yes. Detangling. So I mentioned knots. You can absolutely fix wigs that are super tangled and super knotted and matted. Last year I literally had a wig that was in mats, and it's wearable again, and I didn't bring it tonight, just like I didn't bring it last year for this workshop, but that's besides the point. As I mentioned, you want to start at the bottom and work your way off. You want to work in small sections, and detangling spray is going to be your friend. So there's this thing called mane and tail. It is a silicone spray, and it's actually meant for horses, hence the mane and tail part. But it works wonders on long wigs and helping with detangling because it actually coats the fibers in silicone and then things brush through a little bit easier. So this is why you can do this kind of stuff with wigs that you can't do with your real hair. Or if you're cheap like me, you can use a 50-50 mixture of plain unscented lotion or scented lotion if you really like scents, and water, and shake it and then use that as your knockoff silicone spray, because what does lotion do? It's a lubricant. It makes things soft. It makes your skin soft. It makes your hands soft. It lets things slide together more nicely. Same principle applies to wigs. When it comes to taming frizz, you can use heat to tame frizz. Just hit that thing with a straightener, brush it through. It should be able to be fixed. If your wig isn't heat resistant, you can cut frizz off. If it's not heat resistant, there isn't necessarily a way to save it, so cut your losses, hold a funeral, move on, perhaps. And then storage. You always want to store your long wigs in a braid or multiple braids and not just shoving them into the bag, because then you're going to end up with more tangles than you had before, and that's a nightmare, and nobody wants that. If you have any crazy styled wigs or wigs with styles that you just don't want to ruin, that's when you keep them on a wig head. So like the ones on top right are from some of my favorite cosplayers, Covet Crunchy's cosplay. As you can see, those are all styles that would not hold up if you put them in a bag. So they need to be kept on wig heads. They're displayed really nicely on the wall in this custom shelving unit. I know not all of us are capable of doing that because we live in dorms and apartments. But like my Deku wig, I keep on a wig head because I don't want the fluff to get squished. So yeah, just leave it on your desk. Leave it on top of your bed, scare your roommates, scare the people coming into your apartments for tours. It's my favorite thing. Basic wig styling. So tools. In my experience, I have found that if you want to get anywhere, you need to have at least some of these items on the left, and the ones on the right are more of like a not necessary but nice to have. Obviously, a wide tooth comb. You're going to need to be brushing things out as you go. A fine tooth comb is nice for teasing. Can you tease wigs at all or tease anything? Hairspray and hair gel, I swear by got to be. It is made with quality. You can obviously use other hairspray or other hair gel. However, this stuff is well known for it works really, really well. It's a little pricey, but watch for coupons, watch for sales, because it's definitely worth investing in. Things like bobby pins or hair ties, rubber bands, etc. Just good to have on hand. A good pair of really sharp scissors. If you do not have a pair of really sharp scissors, you won't be able to cut the wig nicely, or you're going to get really gross looking cuts. It's like with fabric. You need a good sharp pair of fabric scissors. You need a good sharp pair of wig scissors. Don't use the same one for both. That's a sin. Also a hair dryer. I mentioned how heat is going to be your BFF. A standard hair dryer will do wonders for you. And then a wig head, obviously. I found extras, things to help, things like wig head stands. So there's a variety of these. There's like, Alyssa has this one, which like suction cups to the table. I don't know how this works. Oh, there it is.
It sucks.
Like that. It sucks.
It also sucks.
It also, yeah, it doesn't have a super good grip.
It depends on what like surface you're on.
So this is pretty good because this is a nice flat surface, but and then there's just like this one, which is just a standard table clamp. These are super cheap on Amazon, super accessible. So thinning shears and razor combs are also really nice for doing more natural looking styles and just making things look more professional. So we have, if you wanted one, we have them, here they are. Things like wire, felt, or foam or understructures. If you're doing any kind of insane styling, it's easier to put something and cover it with wig hair than just try to do it all with the wig hair, if that makes sense. Things like extra wefts, which are just sold by various different companies, or you can gut other wigs to get the wefts you want. So like, here's a bunch of blue ones I had left over from a project from last year. You can buy these on some of the like quality wig seller websites I mentioned, or you can find them. Did I lose one? I lost two. Or you can, like I said, actually buy a really cheap wig and then literally rip it apart, which is what these came from. That's cathartic, by the way, watching a wig come destroyed. I don't know what that says about me in person, but. And then things like curlers or flat irons or straighteners, and they do make specialty teasing brushes. I've never used one. A comb works just fine, but they're really nice to have apparently. So, trimming wigs. The biggest thing when it comes to cutting wigs is that you want to cut either vertically or in some type of a vertical motion. So instead of just grabbing a pair of scissors and going straight across, you're going to end up with a really blunt, really hard line. It's going to look really obvious and really noticeable. They're going to look choppy. Sometimes you want this if you're doing things like hime bangs, like Dario Dayu from Show My Rock, or if you have weird horizontal layers like Atsushi from Bungo Stray Dogs. Sometimes it's okay to just cut straight across because that's the look you're going for. Generally, that's not the look you're going for, however. So use a really sharp pair of scissors. You can use razor combs to feather the edges of things, which is going to give it a nice, softer look. This is hard to describe, but when we get to the hands-on portion, it'll be a little bit more obvious to see. So it's nice for bangs or for putting in layers. I kind of go by the, like, if you're cutting off a ton of hair, you can just cut it straight across and then go back in with, like, a razor comb and clean it up, or come in and do the vertical or do a little bit of shearing. They do make special, like, shearing scissors and special wig scissors, which are meant for, like, cutting hair. Beauty supply stores sell them because, you know, beauticians are a thing. I, however, have managed to get by without a pair for, like, the last 4 years of my cosplay life. I suspect it's one of those items that, like, once I invest in it, I'm never going to go back. But I haven't invested in one yet, so you can mimic the effects with just a regular pair of scissors to get a really nice looking thing. So shearing is like an up-down motion while you're moving sideways. Like I cut a wig on Jenna's head last week and just sheared everything off, and it looked nice and fluffy.
It did.
I like things. Thanks. Spikes. Obviously, spikes are a big one. Everybody has a character that they can think of with spikes. Looking at you, Kingdom Hearts. The biggest offender. Or like Natsu from Fairy Tail or Guy from Tales of the Abyss. Spikes are not as difficult as they seem. They do take practice to get them as clean looking as these photos. But they're definitely not terrible. You can work in small sections, use a bobby pin or a hair tie to kind of section things off. And then your frenzy is going to be hairspray and heat. So hit it with hairspray, hit it with heat immediately, and it's going to lock into place. This is why I like the Got2b brand so much, because you hit that with heat, and it insta-solids. It's like, it's done, it's not moving. You can also use hair gel or tacky glue. Here comes the, if you can put glue into a wig. At the tips of the spikes to hold them together. I've actually found tacky glue works better than the hair glue than the hair gel does to hold things together a little bit more permanently. You want to start at the top and work your way down because you can tell if you start at the bottom because you're going to have uneven looking spikes and like all of a sudden you get to the top of your head and there's not enough hair and it's like, oh shit. And it may require some support if your spikes are gravity defying. So I mentioned before that you could use foam or you can use felt. So if you're making like a cloud wig from Final Fantasy, a lot of people just put a foam cone on top of their head and then they cover it with wig hair. Acceptable. Adding and removing wefts. This is one of the most basic and most useful skills that you're ever going to have with a wig. You can cover thin or bald patches. You can do some more extreme styling by putting in some extra wefts. You can thicken a wig if it's too thin. You can add more than one color, or if somebody has just like a streak of one color, you can put that in. Also on the flip side, if your wig is too thick or there's too much hair, you can take some of it out. I've never had that problem before, but it may happen to you, who knows. So this is again more easy to see when you have a physical wig in your hand, but the rows of hair are tied to the like base netting of the cap by just rows of stitching, and if you cut those out or if you seam rip them out, they just pull right out of the wig. You always want to be careful though, and this is a really good photo to demonstrate it, that you're cutting the thread between the bottom part and the weft and not actually cutting this thing itself, because then it unravels and then there's loose hair everywhere. And I mean everywhere. You will be pulling it out of your clothing, you will be pulling it out of your couch, it will be on your floor, it will be everywhere. Can you tell I've done this before by accident? It will be everywhere. And then you can, if you're adding wefts, you want to lift hair out of the way and just pin the new ones in place. You can hand sew them in, or if you're like me and you hate hand sewing with a goddamn passion, I use glue. Because nobody says I can't. My Deku wig was entirely tacky glued in. I sewed about like a quarter of a line of wefts and I was like, nope, I'm done! And I glued everything else in. I do recommend against using hot glue though, because hot glue has strings and you'll be pulling hot glue strings out of your wig forever. So tacky glue. The quick dry stuff is phenomenal.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I actually found that hand sewing it worked better because if you're just putting it on like the same weft, like just doubling it up, you can just spiral. Like, a nice
You can.
spiral.
I hate hand sewing with passion though. I mean, yeah, the hand sewing does definitely work. I mean, it works very well, but I just really, really, really hate hand sewing. So I don't. I cheat. I go the easy way. So then there's the duck butt style, which, everybody's favorite emo ninja. Or like Lapis Lazuli from Steven's Universe is really good for this. There are a couple different ways that you can achieve this type of look. So you can back comb and smooth the wigs. This is where teasing comes into place, where you literally tease the back of the hair into a big mass, and you hairspray it and you hit it with heat so that it stands up on its own. And then you take the rest of the hair and you just smooth it back so it looks really nice. Nobody can tell that there's a rat's nest of hair underneath there, and the world doesn't know your secrets, but you look great. You can also just treat it as spiking if you want, just putting in a bunch of little spikes or one really big spike. Or you can, as mentioned before, put like a foam cone in there or some type of felt and actually smooth wefts over it. So my pearl wig from Steven Universe, I did the back combing method where I just, so it looks nice and smooth on the sides, but underneath here is, I literally just went nuts with the brush, brushing it backwards until it was knotted and it was tangled, and then I glued it into place and then smoothed the rest of the hair back over. This wig is since dead because it's been put in a bag and squished, but it happens.
Rest in peace.
Rest in pieces, thank you. So generally just fluffing a wig. This is really good for characters like the Persona 5 protagonist, or like Deku, or any type of character with kind of generally fluffy hair. Flip it upside down and hit that sucker with a hairdryer and just let it cool. This is actually what I have done for my Deku wig all 3 times I have restyled it, where if you put it upside down, you hit it with heat, you let it go, you put a little hairspray in there maybe, and then when you flip it back up, it's going to look nice and fluffy like the photo on the right. You can also just do that with your fingers too. Even if you're wearing it, you can just kind of finger fluff things, put a little bit of heat or a little bit of hairspray on there. You can gel up your hands and kind of go to town as well. Or when it's on a wig pad, this works too. Making something fluffy is very easily. And then attaching accessories. So if your character has ears, or if they have horns, or if they have a giant bow on the head, or if they have something, there are lots and lots and lots of different options that you can do. So you can use like office supply screw posts and headbands. So you literally just put the headband on under your wig, and then you literally connect the pieces and screw them in together, and it looks seamless because nobody can see underneath your wig. However, you don't want to do that for really big items. That works really well for like horns or small antlers or small ears, certainly smaller things. You can absolutely just use like an alligator clip or a barrette of some sort. That works especially well for like bows because that's what actual hair bows and hair accessories are done with, just barrettes, and slap it in there and call it a day. Or you can sew things directly into your wig. This works really well for ears, and I can think of a couple people in this room who have wigs sewn directly into their ears. That'd be interesting. Ears sewn directly into their wigs. This works for bigger items as well, or if you want a little bit more stability. There's no rule against just sewing something straight into the cap of your wig. Or you can just glue it in. If you're lazy, if you hate hand sewing with passion, I am calling myself out. You can just glue it in. So advanced styling, I'm not going to go super in-depth in these because these are a little bit more particular styles and things that would require some more practice, but I still think that they are worth mentioning because they are common enough that you will see them in a lot of media. So Odango, everybody knows Sailor Moon, right? If you don't know Sailor Moon, maybe you know Ranma because Shampoo has Odango as well. So Odango are these horrible, horrible hair bond things. Yeah, they're the goddamn devil to make. Basically, you are going to take some type of a styrofoam object or some type of a lightweight core item. You are going to cut a hole through it. You're going to feed your hair into the hole, and then you're going to wrap the hair around the object, gluing it down as you go, and then gluing the ends in the other end of the hole so that it ends up looking really nice and clean when you're all done. That's me on the bottom right. I did, bless you. I did Human Luna from Sailor Moon, who has not 2 Odango, but 4. And I did this as my first ever Odango project, and I actually blistered 8 out of 10 fingers with a hot glue gun making this. So standard disclaimer that hot glue guns are hot, and be careful. Also, scissors are sharp. So, yes, there's tons and tons and tons of tutorials for this online. And if you are planning on doing Sailor Moon or any other character with an Odango, I highly recommend looking up a video tutorial or doing something like that. So there's also ventilating. So I mentioned before lace front wigs, which get you this really nice widow's peak hairline or any type of really nice natural looking hairline. That also comes with a price tag. Lace fronts are typically pretty pricey, not typically in a college student's budget type pricey. So if you don't want to invest the money into a lace front, you can actually just turn a hard front wig into a lace front by sewing in some lace and then individually sewing in wig fibers to get the desired hairline you want. This is called ventilation. I've never attempted ventilation, quite frankly. I don't ever want to attempt ventilation because I know it is time consuming and it is tedious work. It's not hard, it's a matter of like, it's kind of like knitting with hair onto lace where you literally just loop the hair through the lace with a little hook, these latch hooks down over here. However, we've kind of established I hate hand sewing or doing anything that's tedious and time consuming, so naturally ventilation sounds like my personal hell. So I'm probably never going to attempt this, but it can be done. It's a lot cheaper than buying a lace front wig because buying a pack of wefts and some lace for the front of the hairline is going to be a lot cheaper than dropping, $80, $100+ on a lace front wig. So it's an option. So then tutorial, I just have a whole bunch of tutorials and resources. Arda has their own huge, great list of tutorials that they have for tons and tons and tons of different styles and things you can imagine. Epic Cosplay Wigs does as well. Cosplaytutorial.com, which is exactly what it sounds like on the tin, has a whole list of various wig tutorials. As I mentioned before, Cowboy Crunchies Cosplay, who were the ones that had all the crazy wigs displayed on the thing. Some of my favorite cosplayers. They also have a wealth of knowledge about wigs. I have followed them for years, and honestly, it has been very, very educational. And then places to buy, things like Arta, Epic Cosplay, Wigs Fashion, Rockstar, eBay, and blah, 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 you know. This is all for you guys if you wanted to come back to this at any point. Any questions before we move on to the